Moonlighter for the Switch. Yup. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WTF segment. Let's get some music going. Yes, beautiful music. So this is a pre-recorded episode of WTF, and the reason for that is because I didn't stream last Sunday. But that doesn't mean the show must not go on, so let's get right into it. Welcome to the WTF segment, or Where's the Fun, as I like to call it. And Where's the Fun, what we'd like to do is I sit here and do a very subjective game analysis design review of a game. So I understand the games that I like in order to figure out what I want to pull into my own game. And one of the things I like about this game we're talking about today is this beautiful soundtrack by David Fenn. And the game we are talking about today is Moonlighter. So I played it on the Nintendo Switch. We did some console streaming last week. And Moonlighter was selected because I really thought it was going to be the evolution of our little train of Harvest Moon style games. So we went with Harvest Moon on the Super Nintendo, Stardew Valley next, and then I thought Moonlighter was kind of an evolution of that, kind of off there. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But if you haven't played Moonlighter, the focus of Moonlighter is actually, it's a neat game. This is what caught my attention, is you're a shopkeeper in a little town where there's a forever kind of dungeon, a series of dungeons that opened up. They called them the dungeons. And so this is your shop, and you can upgrade your shop in your little town. You can upgrade the town, and the way you fill your shop with cool stuff to sell and to make money is by doing the main gameplay, which is a original Legend of Zelda style dungeon crawler with procedurally generated dungeons. There's different themes to each one. And it's a bit of a roguelike, because if you can't really die, as far as I understood. You can kind of get thrown out of the dungeon, you lose your loot, but you kind of get deeper and deeper, and you can level up your character, and more times you go into it, the more stuff you sell, the more upgrades you get, and you can upgrade your town, get more weapons, magical items, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things like that. And we just kind of scratched the surface on there, on our stream. But yeah, this is the general core gameplay the gameplay loop is that you go into the dungeon, gather relics, and then you bring them back out and sell them in your shop. And you kind of decide what you can bring. There's only so much you can bring out. The rarer the item, the more you can sell it for. But you also have to set the prices of your items. So you have to learn about what's too expensive, what's not expensive, or what's too cheap. You can see in this little slide here, gentleman is very happy because he's buying something and he's got the dollar signs, meaning you've probably priced it too cheap. But you can go the other direction too, if pricing stuff too expensive and people won't buy it and they get grumpy. So every item has its own value, and you kind of have to figure that out as you go. You take those profits, upgrade your character, upgrade your town, upgrade the systems, upgrade your shop, and it kind of the cycle continues as you explore more and more dungeons. So the feelings I had about this game, I was definitely interested. So it caught me really early on. I really liked the storekeep nature of this, the storekeeper kind of idea. That's where I thought the Harvest Moon piece kind of came into it. There's a whole economy to it. I was kind of had these kind of grandiose expectations of how complex that gameplay was going to be. But at the end of the day, I also felt very challenged, because this is a roguelike dungeon crawler kind of thing. I'm not sure if it's a roguelike or a roguelike, so excuse the incorrectness, but it just seems like it's that repetitive dungeon loop. So I call it a roguelike. But it's not, I guess it's not really a roguelike because you don't really upgrade yourself, but you pay to upgrade yourself. Anyway, the dungeon crawling aspect was very challenging, and I put it on the intended difficulty, which is hard. I could have gone easier, I'm sure. But it was very challenging for me. I'm not good at these types of games, but it was really fun. Like, the little bit that I did play was really fun. It was very Legend of Zelda, except with full degrees of motion. So more like, I guess, Link to the Past or A Link Between Worlds on the DS, so that kind of style. But I was very challenged by it. In terms of the other feeling I felt was that I felt very enclosed. I felt very kind of locked away, because there was this whole town and there's all these dungeons, but there were really just 2 points. There's the town area and then the dungeons, and there was nothing else. And I don't know, I think I had this expectation of, again, I think my expectations weren't set correctly. For myself, maybe cause I had this imagination, like I said, I thought this was kind of the evolution of Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley, kind of a spin-off of that. So I had this expectation of having a little bit more depth to the world, but we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So let's talk about the good things here for sure. So the good is I loved the gameplay mashup, like an economic simulator, which is the second thing here, and the town development. All these kind of mashed together. The economic simulation and the town development, I loved those pieces too. And the gameplay mashup of a dungeon crawler with this kind of economic town, like this little mini town simulator thing, was really cool. I loved that. It's a really neat idea. It was a realistic interpretation of these dungeon games. You're not just the hero who's going to save the princess. It was, no, you're going into the dungeons to make a living. And I love that realistic narrative and that realistic idea, and mashing that up with, again, the dungeon crawler aspect of it. I just really got a kick out of that. The town development, I want to highlight this because I really liked it. It was very Dark Cloud. So this game actually was, I would say, more of a, rather than Stardew Valley, it took more of a vein of Dark Cloud. The original, where you were building up the town, or ActRaiser 1 on the SNES, where you would build up your town or your villagers and stuff like that. Like, it was a non-violent gameplay style. You used the money you earned and the things you earned in the other game, in the dungeons, and through selling, to build up your town, and then again ultimately upgrade yourself or upgrade your shop and kind of see how you see fit, which I really appreciated. I love that kind of town development idea of building up a base camp or whatever. I really think those are cool. In terms of the next thing, the less good is the simplicity of the town itself. Again, this is probably more about, that's why I said this is a very subjective review. The simplicity of the town and the town system, I was expecting a little bit more, I think. Like, I thought you could do more with the shopkeeping, rather than just, you know, selling items and then reading how people, if you were pricing them wrong. I thought there'd be a little bit more to it. I don't know why I thought that. I think I was expecting, again, more Stardew Valley. Like, there's more systems, more, how do I do more planning around this? How do I plan to be a really great shopkeeper? How do I plan to keep the cool items in stock? And you can't really do that in a procedurally generated dungeon. You have to kind of go in there and hunt and hope for the best. And you could, but then there's no point to the planning. There's no growth from the planning other than you get, I guess, there's a way to get more money or something like that. But yeah, the simplicity of the town systems was a little bit weak on my side, and that's probably more my incorrect expectations. The second thing I didn't like was the characters. I met one main character. There's people around town, and as you upgrade the town, more characters become available to you that are shopkeepers, but there's no real depth to them as far as I could see. There's a couple of little side stories that look like, but there wasn't a lot of people. Maybe the town gets busier as you build it up, but I didn't see that at all, and I didn't actually feel that at all. So it didn't catch me at all. The characters, and I'm a big narrative-driven kind of guy. I'm looking for narrative, and I was really expecting a little bit more depth with the town, like the simplicity of the town, but also expected depth of the characters again. Thinking this was kind of an offshoot of a spin-off of Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley, and again, that is definitely an incorrect assumption on my part, but c'est la vie. My takeaways from this, for sure, and these are the takeaways I want to pull into my game, is that systems need complexity and depth, but they also need simplicity. I guess I should add that. What I mean by that is so complexity and mastery are really important when you have these systems. So the dungeon crawling is skill-based, and that's totally cool. There's a lot of depth to that. You got to get better at it. You upgrade your character, and you get better weapons, and so on and so forth. Really nice system around that. The shopkeeping is where I thought it needed more than just what I saw. I didn't see where this was going to go. I just kind of got a kick out of it, and then I would go do the dungeon crawling because I had to. But I would have loved to have seen that fleshed out a little bit more, which I think is a completely different game at this point. I don't think Moonlighter is that game, and that's fair. But when I have a system, when you introduce a system, if the player really latches onto it, you want to be able to give them that gameplay. If that's what I wanted the game to be. And again, kind of like Stardew Valley. If you do the farming, awesome, but you could also become a really great miner or a forager or whatever. Focus was obviously building up your farm. The goal was the same. But the goal in this one was, I think it was to clear out the dungeons and solve the dungeons and become famous, or and make your store good, or improve your store. But I just didn't see that. I didn't see that. Like, it seemed very arbitrary whether I upgraded my store or not. So I didn't really see the value in it early on. Locations need depth early on too. So again, like I'm referring specifically to the town. I need to be able to explore the town and understand the problems of the town. I wanted to get to know the town's people. There was just one section of the town, and that was about it. That's all I got to see, at least. I didn't find anything else. And that was a real bummer for me. And last but not least, NPC stories definitely matter. If you're going to have characters that you're going to talk to, you're going to have a town, you're going to have this engagement, you want those stories to actually matter. You know, my character has a story. Gotta fix this store, which is great, but it didn't really resonate with me in the same way. Like you're a member of this town. This town was decaying because no one was going into the dungeons anymore and all this stuff. Like it was kind of just a cutscene, but then they plunk you into it, going like, "Good luck." And I don't know. I really wanted to know the hardships of the people around me. I wanted to have some. What am I building up? And again, maybe my expectations of that Stardew Valley, maybe I still have a little bit too much Stardew Valley taste in my mouth, but I had expectations around that, and those NPC stories did not seem to matter in the game. They just seemed like just arbitrary tools for your adventure, and that again, kind of was a bit of a letdown. So for me, that was my big takeaway from my game. And with that brings us to the end of WTF. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of WTF. If you like this sort of thing on game development, game design, I'm trying to learn as I go as I make my own game, so you can catch me on every Thursday, mixer.com/DavidWest or twitch.tv/DavidWest, which is a new addition. We also post videos every Wednesday about WTF on game design and kind of this little conversation, so if you like this sort of thing, please subscribe, like, follow, any of that kind of stuff on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all /DavidWest. And until next time, have yourselves a lovely day.